Brian Doyle, the crowd didn't surround Perry, he writes. Perry specifically ran a red light to drive his car right into the middle of the crowd. Well, this is simply a misrepresentation. So the evidence at trial is that Perry, driving, I think it was a Toyota Camry as an Uber driver, some kind of sedan like that, driving on the roadway. The roadway, of course, some of it is awash with Black Lives Matters protesters. They're in the roadway. I mean, what's he supposed to do? Drive in the sidewalk? That's not where people are going to be. But he makes a left-hand turn from one roadway into another. They make it sound like he rammed. In fact, some of these people say he rammed the protesters with his car. When he's initially making that left-hand turn, his car is going about 10 miles an hour. And throughout the entire turn, it's decelerating to the point where when he finally makes the left and he just starts entering the other street, he's doing 0 miles an hour. His car stops right there. He's not ramming anybody. He's not running anybody over. He's not driving in a threatening way. Now, the Black Lives Matters protesters don't like that there's a car in their street where they're walking, and they begin to surround his vehicle, which sounds threatening. Again, we know the reputation, not just the reputation, but the actual performance of many of these protests was rioting, looting, and arson, including arson of vehicles, right? People have been killed in these quote-unquote protests. But the notion that Perry rammed his car into the protesters is ridiculous. If he'd wanted to, what prevented him from doing that? Where are all the injured victims of Perry's ramming attempt? So this is what I mean when they have to lie like this, when the left has to lie and grotesquely misrepresent the facts. That suggests to me that they don't believe they actually have a case on the legal merits. Also says Perry admitted that the victim's legally carried rifle wasn't aimed toward him. And it does appear that Perry says that. I have a little video clip of that from his police interrogation. Effectively, he says, well, I wasn't going to wait for him to point the muzzle at me. By the way, does he have to wait for someone who's an apparent unlawful aggressor to actually point the muzzle of his AK-47 at him before he can defend himself? Of course not. That would be too late, right? If you have reason to believe this person intends to shoot you with that AK-47, you can defend yourself before their muzzle is on you. So the fact that the muzzle wasn't yet pointed at Perry doesn't make this not self-defense. That would be ridiculous if you were required to wait until the muzzle was on you. And I would refer you all again, folks, back to the Roger Fortson case, where one of the major arguments that people are making in favor of Roger Fortson was he never raised the muzzle at the cop, at the deputy. Just like Daniel Perry is not legally required to wait until Garrett Foster's muzzle is on him, that deputy was not required to wait to see if Fortson was going to raise his muzzle at him. If he had a totality of the circumstances belief that Fortson was presenting as an imminent deadly force threat, he doesn't have to wait until the gun comes up. That's not required. So I only suggest that if you're doing a genuine good faith legal analysis, you have to apply those standards the same in both cases. Then Brian says the texts, Perry's texts, aren't crimes, but they're evidence of his intent. Are they, though? Like what intent? Of a murderous intent? We'll see. We're going to look at those texts in just a moment. More. This is from a senator. I don't know if he must be a state senator, I think. Greg Abbott pardoned a man who rammed his car into protesters. That never happened. I mean, where's the injured protester who is rammed by a 2,000-pound motor vehicle? There's none. This never happened. Again, the fact that they have to lie like this really undermines the credibility of their case. Next. Sawyer Hackett. Governor Greg Abbott just pardoned Daniel Perry, a Texas man who drove his car into a crowd of Black Lives Matter protesters before shooting and killing one point blank. I mean, drove his car. He made a turn and stopped and was surrounded by Black Lives Matter protesters. Perry texted a friend, quote, "I will only shoot the protesters in front and push the pedal to the metal." Close quote. First of all, when you see a word like protesters in brackets, that means that's not what Perry said. That means this guy took out the words Perry actually said and put the word protesters in there. Why? Why did he do that? Why didn't he just quote literally what Perry said? Because that wouldn't have made the propaganda point that Sawyer Hackett wanted to make here in his tweet. So he's literally saying, when he says Perry texted a friend, what he's literally saying is Perry did not text this to a friend. I made this up. Also, of course, it's completely out of context. We'll look at what the actual text was in context. And in context, this text is a perfectly consistent with lawful intent, not any kind of criminal intent. Sawyer Hackett again. This is the man Greg Abbott just pardoned for murdering Black Lives Matter protesters. Quote, am I a racist for thinking the way the Black Lives Matter movement is like a bunch of monkeys flinging shit at a zoo? So that's supposed to mean that this guy's racist. First of all, being racist is not a crime. Second of all, this is a question. Am I racist? So it's not a statement. Now, of course, people are trying to make this to the extent if you give the left the opportunity to call you a racist, they're certainly going to do that. What's more horrible in America than being called a racist, right? So they'll certainly use that as a stick to beat you with. And of course, it's not great judgment, right? To be writing texts in which you're does he do it here? Oh, yeah, he does. Huh? Monkeys flinging poop at a zoo. What do you think people are going to do with a statement like that? Regardless of what you think about Daniel Perry on the merits, the legal merits here, folks, you have to know that this kind of verbiage is going to be used against you. Now, of course, Perry was probably thinking that nobody would ever see these text messages. That's another mistake, my friends. Whatever you put on the internet is there forever. Everybody will see it, and it will be mischaracterized by your enemies to the greatest extent possible. Which, of course, is what happened to Perry. Every case I consult on, the first thing the state does is get a subpoena for all social media, all text messages. And they get it all, folks, including all the stuff you, quote unquote, deleted. I get deleted social media content as part of the discovery file every case. It didn't go anywhere. And it's funny, of course, that they can critique Daniel Perry for saying things about white people and black people when the protest is literally a Black Lives Matters protest. Who's being racist? Exactly. I would suggest everybody's being racist in their own way.